The Objective News Network, domestic terrorism. The numbers just don't lie. Last week, we did a story on the crisis at America's southern border. Thousands of illegal border crossings with foreign nationals entering the United States with absolutely no contact whatsoever with customs and border protection personnel. There are literally thousands of completely undocumented foreign nationals who have illegally entered the United States. We explained that the border crisis was just one in a very long succession of failures of the U.S. intelligence community, including our allies, that represents a potential disaster for Americans right here where we live in the American homeland. After your interest in the story, we have polled our viewers asking the following question. Since the U.S. borders are open to anyone who wishes to cross them, do you believe that terrorists have been able to enter the country? We quickly received over 1,750 responses. 92.4% of you replied yes. 4.9% replied no, with the remaining 2.6% of the respondents answering, I don't know. The poll is still open, and we invite you to give us your opinion so that we can add it to our numbers. Looking all the way back to the 1980s and the global rise in international terrorism, we learned, albeit slowly, that the ability to secure a country's borders is the very first step and the essential step in preventing your enemies from attacking you from within. Terrorist actors like Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, the Taliban all serve in one way or the other as Russian, North Korean, Cuban, Venezuelan, Communist Chinese, Iranian, and Syrian terrorist proxies, along with many other enemies of Europe, Australia, Asia, and the United States. Together, they form a highly complex network of state-sponsored militant insurrectionists turned terrorists whose interests are all inimical to those of the United States and our allies. It is a form of asymmetric warfare. There are political, intelligence, and military communities in the West learned in the 1980s, but have been slow to address. Instead of a focus on the countries like Cuba, Venezuela, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and others that engage in proxy terrorist warfare against the United States across the globe, the fight stops at individual proxy groups rather than continuing up the chain to the nations that support and guide their attacks. The recent war between Hamas and Israel with the involvement of Iran is a very good example of what's happening in our current world. The Biden administration's acquiescence to pay a $6 billion bribe to Iran, a well-known sponsor of international terrorism, for the release of American hostages may be an excellent example where a long-standing American policy of refusing to negotiate with terrorists was again reversed. Some observers believe that it is this type of abrupt policy reversals that reveals America's weakness and lack of resolve on the global stage. It is universally agreed that President Biden and his Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, have overseen the largest uncontrolled influx of foreign nationals into the United States in its 248-year history, as at one of the most dangerous times in all of American history. Most objective observers have great difficulty understanding why the Biden administration would ever allow the situation to escalate to the point of creating a national security crisis. Much more could have and should have been done to properly control and stop the influx of undocumented foreign nationals into the United States. But the burning question is, why did President Biden do it? Many have speculated that it is a somewhat obvious political ploy to intentionally increase the voting base in the United States, to cement the long-term power of a growing leftist Democrat Party, to establish a new socialist administrative state. As proof, they point to recent leftist efforts to extend the vote to the recent influx of foreign nationals who have been allowed to enter the United States under the Biden administration. But whatever the reason or reasons, the actions to allow the unprecedented influx of undocumented foreign nationals into the U.S. was an intentional policy decision by the Biden administration that has increased exponentially the potential threat of a major terrorist attack in the homeland, equally as bad, or perhaps much, much worse than the attacks on the Twin Towers in the Pentagon on September 11, 2001. To further analyze the issue, we turn to authentication and pose the simple assertion: thousands of military-aged Chinese men have crossed the border. Authentication is a non-human-in-the-loop software that scans the World Wide Web for empirically proven data that either supports an assertion as valid truth or debunks it. In response to our assertion, authentication reports the assertion as valid and true. The answer? The U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, reports that just under 2,000 Chinese nationals crossed the border in fiscal year 2022, but the first few months of fiscal year 2023 have already seen 4,300 encounters, according to federal data, close quote. By further exploring the data supporting this number at authentication, we learned that it does not include possibly thousands of additional undocumented Chinese Communist nationals who may have illegally entered the United States. In the past, we have reported to you the discovery of a Chinese Communist biolaboratory operating in plain sight in California, the operation of secret Communist Chinese police stations across the United States to control, use, and extort Chinese American citizens or people of Chinese descent to disavow their obligations as citizens or residents of the United States of America. The fact that the Chinese communists intentionally genetically mutated SARS virus and other deadly biological pathogens, resulting in the deaths of millions of people, including 1 million Americans, as a result of COVID-19 global pandemic. We have also reported the unprecedented actions of the Communist Chinese to militarily harass the United States, Canada, Australia, and others, including the Philippines, in the regions of the South China Sea and the Pacific, as they attempt to fuel by military force their imperialist, expansionist ambitions. All of this leaves us with the burning question: why are we allowing the proxy terrorist groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, Taliban and others sponsored by our enemies like Communist China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, Syria, and others to enter our country at will. Why? It is what it is. Thanks for watching, and please tell your family, friends, colleagues, and followers about us. Please subscribe. Here at ONN, we try to factually set forth the facts so that you, our viewers, can make up your own minds about the emerging events and news stories of the day based on the genuine issues of fact in the matter. Thank you, and we will see you the next time. This is John Hnatio reporting for the Objective News Network.